So I'm seeing all these things and the descriptions of, I mean, she's in the wilderness and it's a beautiful place.
Good evening, folks. This is Trish from Downtown Book and Sound, and I'm here tonight with author of a book called Ellis River, Nicki Ehrlich. Ehrlich. Man, I'm so bad at names. I'm horrible at it. And we're going to have a little chat with her. And let me see. We're going to make sure that we are live. Okay, we're good. So we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're here to have just a few questions and maybe even a short reading from the author tonight. And so I'm going to welcome her to be on the air here. And let me see if I can get into the banners and put the right banner up that I just put on. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. We got it. Okay, Nicki, you're going to be able to see yourself. So So you'll be able to know if that your face is in the thing while you're on.
Great.
And I'm going to trade places with you so we can chat and
you can cut and edit this.
This is live. It streams
It's
live.
live. It's going down.
It's streaming live, so it's going now.
All right.
Well, I want to thank you for being
Hi there.
here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really do.
Yay,
appreciate it.
Nicki! And we do have a small audience here, which is really nice. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah. Make lots of noise. So, I'm Nicki Ehrlich, and the author of this book, Ellis River. Isn't that beautiful? Thank you, Trish, for having me here tonight. Thank you for carrying my book and so many other books from independent publishers. We really appreciate that. It's a solitary effort to write a book, but it takes a community to support it, the launch and the flight of it, and get it out there. With all the writing that I've done between grade school when I diagrammed sentences to now, Ellis River, this book, was the first one that I've actually gotten published. I was inspired to finish it in a novel writing class at MPC, Monterey Peninsula College. And the students and my teacher, Henry Marchand, and the students in that class just reacted to the story beyond my expectations. The book just became more than I thought it could. And it started as a simple Western. I wanted a strong female protagonist who knew her horsemanship. I'd been reading a lot of Zane Grey novels, and you don't get a lot of that in Zane Grey novels. But it became more of a literary Western. There's no such thing as a literary Western. I made that up. But it's technically historical fiction, but it's very character-driven. And Ellis, of course, is the main character, along with her horse in this book. So I started writing this and put it in that novel writing class about the fall of 2019. And when the pandemic hit, it gave me lots more time to write. So I got it published last year about September. And since then, it has it got some great reviews from NetGalley, Reads Discovery, Publishers Weekly Book Life, and Kirkus. And it was a semifinalist for the Publishers Weekly Book Life Prize. And more recently, it has become a finalist for IBPA's Benjamin Franklin Award. It's specifically the Bill Fisher Award for Best First Book in Fiction. And come May 5th, I'll know if I'm in first place for that, if I get a gold seal or a silver seal. But I'll get one of those seals to put on the book, so I'm really happy about that. So, before I forget to plug it, I hope everybody out there will definitely buy books from their local bookstores. If you're in Salinas or around Salinas, come on down to Downtown Book and Sound. great bookstore. It's gorgeous. And there's, I don't know, thousands of books in here, right?
We have over 60,000 new and used
60,000 new and used books here at this store. It's a fantastic place. So I see from the crowd here, most of you have read parts of this already. So I don't know if I should do a reading or not, or if I should just open up to questions.
Please, would you do a short reading
You
for
want
us?
me to?
We would
Okay.
love that.
I am happy to.
Especially for our online audience, because
Right.
they may not have read your book yet.
Right. And for those of you who haven't gotten past the first couple pages, I'll start in the beginning so that there's no spoilers. Okay, this is chapter 1. Dear Daddy, it's spring again, the year 1865. I never realized how alive this place was when you were still here, you and Walter working the horses, and Mama yelling at Earl to help do whatever it was he was supposed to be doing. I couldn't wait to open my eyes in the morning so I could breathe in the scent of horse sweat, leather, and breakfast. I can still hear Mama singing to herself in the kitchen, and Earl's laugh and the nickering of the horses like they were laughing back at him. The morning you and Walter left with that string of geldings headed toward Memphis, everything changed. Ellis stopped writing. She reached out and ran her fingers along the spines of the small leather-bound notebooks lined up on her desk. Welded horseshoe bookends held them upright. All those years ago, her mother had given her the first diary for her birthday. Every time she filled one, some celebratory event caused another to appear. Another birthday, extra chores accomplished, good marks in school. And ever since, Ellis wrote. Doing chores or wandering the woods of western Tennessee, she would soak up the details that would later flow through her fingers to her pen. Like the constancy of the river, a force, strong and natural, settled her at the desk, dipped her pen and put it to paper. Her mother would tell Ellis to write down her feelings. She would never ask to see what her daughter had written. She had wanted Ellis to write freely and get it out on paper so she could then get on with daily life. When her mother passed, Ellis thought she'd never be able to write again. She would sit for hours at this desk in her upstairs bedroom, staring at a blank page. And all she could think of was trying to get in touch with her father or find her brothers. And so, though she had nowhere to send them, she wrote letters. Perhaps someday there would be an address. The house was too quiet, though it echoed the normal aches and pains of a wooden building. The pine stairs creaked and moaned under nothing but their own weight, reminding her of her twin brother Earl's footsteps as he would sneak into his room across the hall from hers after not showing up for dinner. The wind groaned like a twister coming through, but it was only a small zephyr at worst, or an early spring breeze. Loneliness amplified. Her bedroom window faced north with a view of the back corrals. For a few days now, long before sunrise, an unnatural glow illumined the horizon. And today, a shift in the wind, a distant pounding. Maybe it was just the blood beating in her head, but she got up from the chair at her desk and walked to the open window. April usually promised warmer weather and new growth, but today's breeze smelled like the ending of a story, not the beginning. She breathed in. The air, stark and barren, did not promise spring. The teeming life that once surrounded the homestead just wasn't there anymore. War does that. Her father and older brother Walter had been excited when they were first made aware of what everyone thought would be a short dispute far to the east. Ellis had heard her father talking to the other men at the Society of Friends Hall. Some were upset about what they were hearing, but her father reckoned selling horses to the troops would enable him to expand the homestead, finally building a ranch he wanted. And somehow he thought it would be an occupation necessary enough to the war effort that it might exempt him and his sons from the battlefield. Her father was no coward, but killing another man was wrong, and this wasn't his fight. That's what he'd said. He did not hold slaves, and the community in which they lived would not allow it. But he traveled south and brought back stories of 1,000-acre plantations that couldn't be run without them. On the promise of a sunny summer day in 1863, he and Walter left with a string of saddle horses to be sold to the Army. They said they'd be back for her birthday. She was about to turn 13 then. That was 2 years ago. Ellis returned to her desk and started to write again. Mama tried. She stopped, turned to look out the window. then looked back at the paper and the ink stains on her fingers where she held the pen. Weariness slowed her hand, and she leaned forward, resting her head on crossed arms. Days before the soldiers showed up, Ellis had tried running the horses off into the woods where they couldn't be found. But the well-trained equines just startled, ran around the pasture, and came back. She had watched her father make deals since she was old enough to walk and ride, but she wished her brother were here to help. Most of the neighbors had started to clear out well before Earl left, her friend Prissy and her folks holding out the longest. Many headed west to the Mississippi and then north, but Mama insisted they wait for Daddy, and then Mama got sick. At first, she just talked to herself or to Daddy as if he were standing beside her. One night, Ellis woke to a voice coming from the corral, Mama trying to rope a horse that wasn't there. And then the night it rained so hard, Mama out in the garden in her nightgown digging potatoes. Earl had helped Ellis get her dried off and back into bed. When Ellis returned to her mother's room with tea, Earl was holding the worn paper of Daddy's letter, a letter written at least a year ago, before the war crept so far west. She saw a sadness on her brother's face she hadn't seen before. Mama had read the letter once to them, but they knew she kept it in her pocket to read over and over. Earl had tried to hide his emotions from Ellis, but the next day, he was gone. He left a cryptic note about finding Daddy and Walter, but Ellis knew he hadn't a clue where they might be or where to start looking. Mama stopped getting out of bed. She wouldn't eat much. She would ask Ellis to read to her until she fell asleep. Ellis didn't think Earl would have gotten too far when he left. He never did have any patience, could barely sit still for a meal, always moving. But neither one of them had been farther from home than the river by themselves. Earl had been gone a month now, or was it longer? Thank you. Can I answer any questions?
I just want to say that the voice that you hear in the book is really your voice, like they match.
Oh,
perfectly.
Thank
Great.
you. That's kind of good to hear. I'm actually having an audio book done, and it's not my voice. I'm not reading it. That's like a skill that I leave to the professionals. But it's very interesting to hear somebody else reading your book. I'm amazed at the different voices one person can do. Absolutely amazing. But like when you're listening to the narrative in between the dialogue, it's like, I might not read it that way, but they read it that way. And it's like, okay, is this okay or not? So hopefully it'll all come out okay. And I'll be really happy with it on the audio too.
Are you going to possibly do the reading?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to possibly do the reading?
No.
No. Definitely not.
No. There's professional people who do, they're voice actors and they're amazing people. And, to even get the narrative separate from your main character is one thing, but then if you've got some other characters in there, I mean, you hear them in your head, doesn't mean you can make it come out your mouth, but some people can actually do that, and it's amazing that they do. So anyway.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to write the book?
How long did it take me to write the book?
I mean, once you decided to start to go for it.
Yeah. It's a two-sided question, kind of. To me, writing isn't just sitting down and writing the words, or typing or writing whatever you're doing. It's a lot of thinking. You're thinking about it all the time. So I'll answer it in a short way, I guess. I started writing it in a 30,000 words in 30 days course. It was an online thing that I did. And so it's, 1,000 words a day is really all you have to come up with. For me, it wasn't that difficult to do. There's NaNoWriMo in November, if a lot of people might know about that. And I actually did the second book that I'm working on now through NaNoWriMo. And that's more like in 30 days, 30 days because it's November. In 30 days, you have maybe 50 or 60,000 words. And I did surpass 50,000 words at NaNoWriMo with the second book. But this 30,000 words in 30 days is what started this book. And then I had to kind of embellish from there. So I did that the same year that I did the novel writing class that I then vetted it through. So I think I did the 30,000 late summer. I took the class in the fall. So then the class vetted some of it, and then I went through it the rest that next year. I think it took about 3 years altogether to get it from the 30,000 days or 30,000 words in 30 days till it got published. It was about almost exactly 3 years, I think.
Wow.
Almost exactly. So, yeah. So I'm trying to get the next one done in less time, but I don't know. I think they take what they take.
Yeah.
And you do sometimes run into problems. Your characters aren't, doing what they're supposed to do or what you think they're supposed to do. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do, but you've got to figure out how to write that in. So.
Well, that sounds like a short amount of time to me for a very, very well written book.
Oh, well.
I hear authors say 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I've worked on other novels too. I have one in the desk drawer that I've been working on for 30 years.
There we go.
So it does happen. Yeah. This one, I don't know, happened pretty quickly because I kind of knew what I wanted to do with it, I guess. So.
Did you have anything? No? So, what I had found intriguing was the historical mix of these folks who were there farming and raising horses and didn't really care about the war, didn't want to participate in it. But I was curious about how those folks, how many people sort of fell into that category. And was that a lot of research you had to do, or was that sort of a thread that you just wanted to carry?
Yeah, the history behind it, the time and place where this was, I did do quite a bit of research, and that probably was more than 3 years because I've been a Western lover for all my life. But it takes place, well, their homestead is actually in a Quaker community. And although they're not technically Quaker, that's why I didn't want to do the thee and thou kind of speech, the historical speech of that. They live in this community because they believe in, they believe in peace and harmony and working in nature. And the parents, Ellis's parents, were both college educated, and that it was done, but it was very rare for women to be educated back then. But her mother, this is all backstory that isn't in the book, but her mother was, was working towards suffragette and working for women's suffrage. And so she was an educated person. Her father was an educated person, but he wanted to be a horse rancher. And so, when the war started, nobody thought it was going to last as long as it did. It was supposed to be for a month or two, maybe at the most. And a lot of people took that as an opportunity for business. And, selling horses to armies, great business. So he thought that was really going to help. And you could try to keep out of the war, to not have to fight in the war, if you had some way of working otherwise for the army. So he thought, as I said in the book, that this would keep him and his sons from fighting. So, did I answer your question?
Yes.
That's kind of the history behind that. It's interesting because you do with historical novels, you do all this research, and it doesn't all end up in the book, but it does end up in the background of the book. So it's a difficult thing to know how much of that to actually put in there and how much to leave out, and that that was all stated by beta readers and editors and, people that read it afterwards that didn't know where my head was, but just saw what was on the pages in the book. So,
Did it say what state? I have
Tennessee.
It was Tennessee.
Yeah, she starts out in Tennessee and moves to Missouri.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, she did move to Missouri.
Yeah, yes. She actually did, yeah. And I actually thought that place was interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm from Southern Illinois, so I kind of know the area. And also because I think, if anybody's out there and you know history better than I do, and that's probably a lot of you, but I think Tennessee was one of the last states to pick sides. And Missouri kind of never did. Like half of Missouri was north and half of Missouri was south. It was a very ambiguous area right in there for longer than some of the other areas in the country. So I thought that would be an interesting place to put it.
Yeah, I actually had a guy today say that you could tell where someone was from by how they referred to the Civil War. If you say Civil War, you're from the North. If you say war between the states, you're from the South, and you're a
Oh.
sympathizer with the Confederacy, which I had no idea. I mean, that was
I
such a
didn't-
simple thing, but this is a
Yeah.
guy who like studies it, so he was.
See, and there's going to be lots of those people out there that study this history and know more about it than I do. So forgive me if I got something wrong, but
No, it sounds like you did perfect.
but well, and one of the other things that I really wanted in the book too was I had read, and I wish I had the names in front of me. I don't, but I had read some books about women who fought in the war on purpose. They actually wanted to be soldiers. Some of them fought in the war because their husbands or lovers or fathers were, and so most of them disguised themselves. Well, they almost had to disguise themselves as men in order to do that, because if they weren't, they ended up in the camps where the women were the women, and it turned out to be like a brothel kind of thing for the soldiers. So there was more of that. There were actually like 400 documented cases of women who fought in the war, and they figure there were hundreds more, because if they lived through it, or if they died in battle and were just buried with the rest of the people, they never knew that they were women. So it was really interesting. And then I ended up finding actually a couple of books that go into that a little farther and a little more history about it. But yeah, it's something that happens in the book, and it's not like she doesn't join the army or anything. That was the other thing that happened, was a lot of times people were just kind of there and got swept up in these battles that came through. And I remember seeing this picture when I was doing some research of a battle happening out in this valley, and these people driving their fancy wagons up to it to watch it like it was entertainment.
Because it was.
It was.
It was the first war to be photographed, for one thing, which
Right.
was really interesting. But the battles were all like kind of known in advance, because the armies would have been getting food and supplies from people in the countryside. So the people in the countryside are like, "Oh, cool! There's going to be a battle. Let's go watch."
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
And I think they captured that in the book, at least some of the parts I read.
Hopefully I did. There's a couple of places.
Sort of stumbling into
Yeah.
a battle.
Yeah.
Stumbling across people from battles, dead bodies just lying around, nobody caring for the dead.
Yeah.
That was pretty common, apparently. Just people were just died, and there was no one to bury them. Everyone was dead.
Yeah. There wasn't enough people left to bury, or if they didn't have time, they had to get somewhere else, or whatever. And then the other thing, which was pretty sad too, was for every man or woman who died in the war, 10 horses died. Because the horses were either people were riding them in the cavalry, or they were pulling the wagons and the supplies and all of that. And there were a couple million maybe horses. And it was amazing. It was amazing, how much destruction those battles could do.
Oh, so that was part of my other question, or just comment, I guess, about how you have this notable contrast running through the book about, this sort of people, the life of the people and the natural life. And so while people are sort of fighting and killing and there's all battles and death and dying, then you have this amazing natural life, the rivers, the birds, the hills, I had to look up one word. I was like, what is this? Berm? I was like, what is that? I just wanted to know if that was on purpose or was it organically?
Yeah, I've been asked that a couple times whether, the contrast between the awfulness of the war and the beauty of the surroundings was done on purpose, and not really. I'm glad it happened, and now I think about it more on purpose, in writing the next one. But I'm really glad that came across that way, because I think it was a part of what I was trying to do. I just wasn't really trying to do it consciously.
Yeah.
So yeah, in all this awfulness, it's still a gorgeous place, and yeah.
Berm. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Look that up.
Kind of a little hill that goes up, from the river, I guess. Yeah.
I think we're going to go off of the live feed, and I want to thank you for agreeing to come tonight and
Thank you,
to join us in Downtown Book and Sound for your book reading and your little author event. And I'm just going to say goodnight to people here. I am not Nicki. I'm Trish, and I want to thank everyone for coming tonight who joined us on the live feed. This will be posted on our YouTube channel, and it will be available on the event page on Facebook. So thank you guys all for joining us. Thank you for our live people, and of course, thanks to the author of Ellis River, right? And we're going to end our broadcast. You can look at it later.